So I guess I wanted to get started by thinking a little bit through the year since we met last, for those people who aren't first-timers. I'm not going to go too much into the product stuff in this particular keynote, because I think you guys probably all know what we've been up to and some of the awesome things we've been releasing. How many people are aware of Confluence 4? Really? All right, come on. Really, how many people are aware of Confluence 4? Okay, that's better. We've put out some really awesome releases this year. Confluence 4, Fisheye Crucible 2.7 that went out a few weeks ago with the active Git repo management. Jira 4.4 is probably our best release of Jira yet. We're going to be talking about 5.0 right after this and some of the really exciting things we've been doing. So I'm going to keep this very product light and very into the technical things that you guys are probably more into. So the first thing I wanted to highlight is exactly how many of the Atlassian team we have here. I believe there's 36 Atlassians, which is a record. So if you don't have one on your table or you can't find one very close to you, please do sing out. Can all of those guys just stand up so everyone can see the Atlassians? All right, so find one. If you need specific product help, if you're looking for anything in particular, find the closest Atlassian and they will be able to point you to someone. We have people representing every product, representing marketing if you're looking for help in getting your product out there. And they're really an awesome team who've done a shitload of work to get here. And from a higher level point of view, we're almost at 400. Actually, this stat is slightly out of date. I think we're just beyond 400 people now. Why is that important to you if you're building plugins and doing other things? Basically, we have a larger team working on engineering of products, and we have more people working on ecosystem stuff than ever before by probably a factor of 2 or maybe even 3 at the moment. So you will see some of the really exciting things we've been doing over the last year to improve the ecosystem and all of the tools and technologies that you guys use. And there's a lot more coming in the next year. So keep posted. We have a huge team of people doing it. And from a customer base point of view, again, the customer base is still growing very strongly. This is my only slide to show you that Atlassians continue to be successful. We're heading up and to the right. And while more developers fuel our development capacity so we can keep building new things on the ecosystem, at the same time, it's the customers that really drive the things that we build that use all of the open source plugins that you guys build, the commercial plugins that ask for new features. So a larger customer base is good for everybody and just helps the ecosystem power along, which is excellent. So when we talk about our ecosystem, I thought I'd drill into a little bit exactly what we mean by this. We use this term a lot, and the reality is the ecosystem is all the guys in this room. But it's really interesting to look at all the guys and girls, who are in this room. So what's interesting is this year we have, for the first time ever, slightly more customers at Atlas Camp than partners. Which is awesome to see the development actually happening within the customer base, as well as obviously within the partner base, who then go out to the customers. But as an example, that's the split. In terms of experience, about 60% of you said that you've written plugins before, or you've got good plugin experience, and about 40% said you're new to the ecosystem, you're new to the plugin development experience. So we try to cater for that as well. And lastly, and interestingly, about half of you write plugins purely for internal use. So we are being very careful to try to take all of these different constituencies when we think about the ecosystem and make sure that they're all happy, right? We often talk about pack and public plugins and things like that, and quite a lot of people are just writing plugins, to help their business needs internally, and we're trying to really focus on all of those different things. So when we think about the ecosystem, especially having given that survey, and it's really nice that you guys all filled out the survey, thank you, and it's nice that it maps to kind of what we think is involved in the ecosystem. There's really 3 major types of folks, and what I'm going to do is basically go through each of the types of folks today and some of the things we've built over the year that are most relevant to those groups of people. So the first group of people obviously are developers. Usually, these are what we refer to as sort of internal developers, are people building those internal plugins. But they can also be building open source and other sorts of plugins as well. The second major constituency we have are integration partners. So people who basically connect one Atlassian application to an application outside Atlassian, or vice versa, right? So they're pulling data in and out of our apps, and they have a very specific set of needs, and some of the things we've been doing will hopefully make more sense when I put it through that lens. And thirdly is obviously the commercial vendors. So people who are building commercial plugins and trying to build their livelihoods on top of the platform that we've created. And all three of these guys work very closely together. They're obviously very overlapping. And we try to keep in mind all of the different constituencies when we're building anything that we're building. What are they building, obviously? Well, they're building plugins. They're increasingly building what we're starting to call internally applications. So the plugins are getting deeper, richer, broader. They have huge amounts of functionality now, and they're really an application that sits on top of Jira or Confluence rather than a sort of a plugin that just adds a small piece of functionality. As I mentioned, they're building more and more integrations, so it's great to have partners from other vendors who are looking to tie into our applications and vice versa. And they're building smaller extensions that are just sort of augmentative to the experience. So you can see this is sort of how we think about the ecosystem. It's quite diverse now, and people are building a whole series of different things. So let's kind of have a look at starting with the developers and some of the things that we have added over the last year to make the experience of developing plugins easier and better for everyone. So the first sort of big launch that you may have noticed is we put up an entirely new developer site. I think it went up yesterday or the day before. Has anyone noticed it's gone up? Okay, handful of people, that's good. So you've probably used the documentation on Confluence.Atlassian before. So we've taken all of that documentation off and launched an entirely new site. Daniel and the team built called developer.atlassian.com. It's much, much better organized. It's much more visual. It really gets into all of the different things. It makes it much, much easier for people to get started, find the reference documentation, etc. I would like to have a shout out to Zen Foundation. So it's actually running on Confluence, and it uses a Zen Foundation theme to skin Confluence to do some of the more visual things that we want to do, which is kind of awesome, I think, that we're using the ecosystem to actually promote the ecosystem and the developer site. Some of the pages, we've worked very heavily on the developer quick start. Again, that 40% of people who haven't built a plugin beforehand, who are building internal plugins, they just want to get up and running really quickly. And traditionally, we focused a little too much on the really advanced developers rather than getting people up to speed. So we've tried to keep that in mind. We're trimming down a lot of the documentation. You'll notice it's a lot more simple. It's better organized. We've gotten rid of comments. If any of you have looked at CAC or Confluence.Atlassian.com, often the comments are from 2008 where someone commented on a document and it's not particularly relevant. So we launched answers.atlassian.com this year, a couple months ago, which is our new community site. And we've built Answers integration into developer.atlassian.com. So the community can live on Answers, and we pull in the relevant questions to each page of the documentation, and they'll be kept fresh. They're ranked by the most relevant answers, etc. So we're really interested to see how that works, and we ate a lot of our own dog food on integrating between the multiple products. And we've worked very heavily on the reference documentation. So the API docs are much more visual now. You can search them. We have a whole series of REST and external API documentation going up there. We have a REST browser API Explorer that I think Rich is going to show a little bit later that will be up here as well. And a whole bunch of different things. So we've worked very heavily on that, developer.atlassian.com. I think it will make it much easier for people to get up to speed. And we'd love your feedback. It's a sort of a 1.0. There's still a lot of things that we want to do. If you have any feedback, please give them to Daniel Franz and his team. You saw yesterday a series of the SDK improvements. I know from talking to a bunch of you yesterday, they were very, very well received. These two improvements specifically, the FastDev and the plugin module generator, are really aimed at making you a faster developer. So just refreshing on the FastDev stuff from yesterday, which did get very, very well received by people I talked to. Again, simply shift reload, it'll reload your plugin for you, and you get back to where you want to be, and you can move forward in development a lot quicker. So it's baked in, SDK 3.6, which again went up yesterday. It's going to be really large. And secondly, the plugin module generator for people who just want to I would need to add a servlet, I need to add a webhook module or whatever, much quicker to get up to speed. And we're really thinking through how to make the development experience faster. If you guys have any ideas, both of these came in part, I guess, from customer ideas and people using the SDK and trying to push the boundaries of how quickly we could do things. So please let us know if you're using the SDK, what frustrates you, and how we could make that a better experience, because it's a very core tool for all of us. Oh well. We're focusing very much on API stability. So we've listened to you guys a lot, and API stability is a big problem that you've had over time. When we move our APIs, and it's difficult because we move the products very, very quickly, to keep the APIs stable is a challenge for us. And we've heard a lot of feedback on this. We've been thinking very, very much about it. So we have a new service launching today called the Plugin Checkup, which actually was supposed to be up this morning, but hopefully will be up tomorrow morning. But if not, it'll be up very soon. It has one bug that didn't get fixed overnight. And basically, the Plugin Checkup is a service where you can upload your plugin, either through URL or file, pick a product, and we will tell you exactly how compatible your plugin is with that version. So you can check internal plugins. It'll cross-reference the APIs you use with the APIs and tell you exactly where the breakages are, which we hope is really handy for the internal developers. We already run the back end of this across the plugins that are in pack. So we try to understand this is the body of plugins and know when we're breaking stuff now internally a lot more. But if you have plugins that you've written internally and you want to check upgrade compatibility, which obviously you can't use the tools in the UPM and pack to do, you can throw up your plugin here. It will then give you, sit there, generate a report, and then the report comes out a minute or two later, generating. And then you get this report that tells you, what methods are unavailable, what methods have become deprecated, etc. So this is not going to change. This specific tool is not going to change the API breakages, but hopefully it's going to make it a lot easier for you to work out, rather than just, my plugin doesn't work, hey, these 3 methods are broken, or that method's deprecated, you might want to move forward when you upgrade, etc. So it's a really exciting tool. Hopefully there will be an announcement tomorrow about the URL for it, but otherwise look out for it. And we would love your feedback about whether it's useful, especially from those internal developers. If you're building plugins inside a company, you've told us that API breakage is really painful for you. It makes it hard to upgrade. We'd love to know if this solves it. Again, it's kind of a first crack at it, but if we can improve it, please let us know. So that's there. And then the Jira 5 stable API is our first API that we are publicly saying is a stable API. So it's a big step for the company. Matt is going to talk about Jira 5 in detail right after me for 45 minutes. His talk is awesome. So I'm not going to try to steal any of his thunder other than to say in Jira 5 is the first time that we've actually spent a lot of time in the engine room team, in the back-end team, making a stable API. We're converting a lot of our internal plugins over to that stable API to make sure that it is broad enough to do all the things that we need to do in all the plugins that we have. And we'd really like your feedback on the beta that went up yesterday. The introduction of the stable API will break some plugins, and that's going to be a little painful in the short term, but we really think in the long term that's a big deal. And it's the first time we've done that, and we've actually sat down and tried to do that. So again, we'd love your feedback on the Jira 5 API. Speakeasy is another tool. How many people have written a Speakeasy extension? We talked about it. Okay, quite a few. So if you haven't, I would encourage you to have a look at it. It's a tool that we use inside Atlassian very, very much now to do prototyping and to build rapid extensions, so small things that get deployed internally. Some of the features in 1.0, 1.1, and 1.2, which is since we've last met, have all come out. 1.3 came out yesterday. Or the day before, which has the most popular Speakeasy feature now, or the most highly voted feature, which is that you can take a Speakeasy extension and publish it to all, and push it to all users. So you can say, everybody in my company, turn this on for them, and it will get turned on for everybody. Because it's hard to have screenshots in a developer talk. Handful of things that we've built. So this is actually a plugin that I built in a board meeting. I know Rich is up the back somewhere, one of our board members. We had a board meeting and I couldn't find the attachments on a page. It was frustrating me, so I just knocked up the Speakeasy extension. It took literally 10 minutes. I run it, but at least it's changing the way we think about perhaps how Confluence's interface could be. We're doing a bunch of experiments in Jira internally around notifications, tasks and things like that, and how to get the developer's workflow a little better. Speakeasy is really helping us to do that. We have a bunch of things like this that we run, which uses local storage. We had a Jira 5 REST API hackathon, and this was a little thing that we knocked up for creating issues quickly. And this is a really good story. So we have an extension that we run inside Atlassian on our main Confluence instance called the Like extension, which was written by a product manager, which shows you how easy Speakeasy is to get up and running. Actually, I think our top 3 or 4 or 5 plugins, do you know, Sharif, about 5? I think the top 5 extensions we have internally, and we probably have now about 200, the top 5 extensions by usage are all written by product managers, or I think all by product managers, actually, which really pisses the developers off. But it shows that Speakeasy is very easy to get small, simple things done and build prototypes and try new ideas. So this was a new idea to try if a like button in Confluence would be used. So it's a very simple Speakeasy extension that when you hit the like button, it basically adds a comment that says, you know, I like this, and then hides the comment from you and just puts your little name up there. So anyone who's installed the extension just sees 6 people like this, and that's it. And then the comments are filtered from people just saying +1, or it's a good idea. So a product manager built this and didn't tell anybody in the company. He installed it for himself, and then he just started liking stuff. And within 7 days, we had about 40 people, so more than 10% of the company enabled this extension without any marketing. It was never published or anything internally. And I said to him, hey, this is really useful. Why haven't you published it? And he said, I'm just fascinated to see how many people virally find it as it spreads through the company. So it's a great example of where Speakeasy can let you sort of rapidly build prototype features. And again, from those internal developers, we'd love to hear from you if it's useful and how you're using it to do things. I hear anecdotally, you know, really interesting things that people have built, but it's still something that we're playing with and pushing forward. So that's a few of the developer-specific features. As I said, the new developer portal, the SDK improvements you've heard about, we're very heavily focusing on the API, and Speakeasy. Still experimental, but we're really pushing it forward and very excited about the direction it's going in. So if we think about people who are building integrations, more and more this has become a critical area to Atlassian and to people using our tools. The tools themselves are becoming more critical, and they want to connect them and get data in and out from other applications. So very simply, this is a slide I used at the summit. The way we think about it is that applications, if they're islands, aren't as useful as if they're connected. And you know, we're focusing very heavily on trying to help you connect your applications with other apps. This means both data, if you assume Jira's in the middle here, data going into Jira and data coming out of Jira, right? It's integrating with other systems and pushing data out as much as it is pulling things inside. Key technology here is application links. So this is kind of a technology that we've worked on for quite a while. We talked about it at Atlas Camp 2 years ago. Last year we launched it. You could download it, etc. If you've used the Jira and Confluence connectivity or any of the things that are in the new versions that connect the two together, so there's the dialogue that Sharif showed to create issues from Jira, from Confluence, that all uses application links. And it's basically the core piece of technology for developers. If you're connecting any Atlassian application to another server, you know, username and password, etc., and you want to build a pipe, this is the technology you should use to build that pipe. And vice versa, if you're having any external application come inwards using OAuth or any sort of auth technology, this is our recommended way to build an incoming pipe, to have it secured and then to make your plugin much easier to write, because there's a standard API to connect. People can use their own connection methods on the pipes. So as I said, we talked about app links last year. Happy to say it's a very stable piece of technology now. It's actually deployed in every single application we ship and has been for a number of versions in most cases. So if you're looking to build plugins and looking to integrate Atlassian apps with other things, app links should be your first point of call. There's some talks from the summit, if you haven't seen them, where people build app link providers. So I'd recommend you go and have a look at them or talk to any of the guys in the room if you're uncertain about how that works. So the second thing for integration that's really interesting is quite often when you're building integration plugins, you just want servers, right? You just want to fire up a Jira server. For example, if you're using the new REST API, you can now write a whole lot of functionality without building a plugin, which is awesome. Using scripts, using whatever you want to do from another application, but you just need a Jira server. So one of the other commands that we added to the SDK this year is the Atlas Run Standalone, which is massively useful. I use it all the time. I think quite a lot of people internally use it. I'll give you 2 use cases, which you may not have thought of. One is if you're building any plugin or any extension that integrates 2 Atlassian applications together, usually your plugin lives in application A, but you need to test it against application B. And so to be able to just bring up a new terminal window and say, I'm firing up a copy of Confluence and I'm going to use my Jira-specific plugin and go and connect to it, saves a ton of time for people who are doing that. The other thing that's really useful, even if you're not developing anything, but if you want to test our new releases, this is the quickest way to test our new releases, right? It's really, really good. So we had a hackathon internally to hack on the new Jira 5 REST API and try different things and sort of see was it full featured and find missing pieces. And so we threw a bunch of developers at building things. The quickest way for all of them to get started, because it was a REST API, the way that I got started is just exactly this command, was to run, bring up milestone 5, and then I had a Jira server running and everything else I did in curl and shell scripts and things to play with the server. And it was a very, very fast way of getting started. So extremely recommended if you're doing any development, and especially if you're doing integration development. It's really, really handy just to be able to fire up a server and see where you're going. Talking about REST APIs, again, Matt's going to go into a lot more detail. But the REST APIs in Jira 5 are a huge investment for us. They're really, really quite awesome in the things that you can do. And I would thoroughly encourage you to use them and give us feedback during the beta period. Beta 1 of Jira 5 went up yesterday, I think. And so we're trying to push the release quite rapidly. But if you are using REST APIs or any Jira Remote APIs, please try the beta. You can use the Atlas Run standalone to try it right now during this talk if you want. Please try it and let us know what you think of the REST APIs. Run some curl commands. Think about plugins you have or what you'd want to do, and just let us know, because that API breadth is really important for us to get right in the first version in Jira 5. And I'll let Matt show you more examples of things it can do. We have a whole series of new plugin modules that have come out over the year that are specifically useful for integration developers. So the first one that I think is underappreciated by a lot of people is Bamboo Tasks. So we've had a few really, really interesting tasks contributed. But if you're doing anything with Bamboo in terms of your build cycle, in terms of the process flow through engineering of artifacts and various other things, tasks are a really, really, really simple API to write plugins to integrate your build process with all sorts of external stuff. And now we have application links. It's really useful. You can build an app link to another server and then have a task that just very easily does authenticated things, for example. So that came from there. The second one is in Fisheye Crucible. How many people have used the smart commits? Anyone use the smart commits? Handful of folks. Okay. Mostly Atlassians. Oh, non-Atlassian. Excellent. People have used them outside. These are awesome, right? We use them quite a lot. And what is not even known, when I ran through this talk with some folks internally last night, they didn't even know that this was a plugin point. So we've obviously marketed it very badly internally. These are two examples of the standard smart commits that come with Fisheye 2.7 and above now. So in the first case, I've put a bug, an issue key in, and then said close and a message, and that will actually then go from Fisheye to Jira, again, via app links, close the issue that I've mentioned, and I don't need to go into Jira at all. I can just do it from the commit message, and we're done. And there's a whole series of commands that will now drive Jira, if you want, from your commit message. It makes your developers much faster. The second one there, in this case, the plus review will create a code review in this project and add Jane Doe as a reviewer. So again, you can do really, really interesting things from the commit message if you're a developer very, very quickly. Speeds up the developer's day. What you may not know if you're building integrations is that this is actually a very, very simple plugin point that you can extend in Fisheye. So you can give us your own regular expressions or matches for a commit message, and then we'll tell you, hey, we have a commit that triggered your message. Here's the commit, here are the files, and then you can go and do other things. So if you want to drive other services from commits, provide a whole language to your developers to get them quicker at doing things, run deploys, do anything they want to do, you can do this with a very simple plugin point that's really, really useful for people building integrations. Activity streams, again, we've talked quite a lot about these. Matt's going to talk more about them in Jira 5. They're now a really good integration plugin point because there are REST APIs to add to the activity stream. So we've seen people already do interesting things with taking internal data from other applications and feeding into Jira's activity stream. So if you're looking at a project, you no longer see just the issue data or issues and commits and other things. You can actually now see, maybe deployments or internal messages or anything can just be shoved in there. So if I'm looking at my team's stream, it's very easy. It's a simple JSON blob. You fire into a single URL, and it turns up and looks very pretty. And lastly, one of the Jira 5 features that I'm most excited about is remote issue links. So from a user point of view, about connecting multiple Jiras together, obviously is something that's been very popular. I want to link not just to an issue in another project, but in another Jira instance. But from an integration developer's point of view specifically, it's a really, really interesting point to take another product or another service you have internally and create links in Jira to those issues. What's interesting from a developer point of view is this is a really good example of how we're thinking about integration APIs going forward. So there's actually two parts to remote issue links from a developer's point of view. One is the REST API. So if you have a look, apologize that the contrast is not very good, but if you have a look at this bottom link here where it just says getting started with Jira with a kind of generic icon, that is the simplest possible link created. It's a single REST service in Jira. It takes two fields in a JSON blob, URL and title, and it will create a link. And it's ultra simple to do from scripts or anywhere that you want to do that. But you've created a remote issue link. If you look upwards where they start to have icons and multiple links and text and all sorts of things, you can take that JSON blob and make it bigger if you want to pass in icons, various other things, usernames, descriptions, etc. So remotely, you can create these issue links very, very easily. Inside Jira, there's also a set of plugins that you can, plugin modules that you can implement if you want to then enhance those links. So if you want to very simply just create links internally, write a shell script that goes and connects to a certain server or something and fires into an issue, very easy to do. If you then want to take those features, especially if you say an integration partner integrated with another product, you can write a plugin inside Jira that renders that link in a different way. So if you want to put a drop-down menu that has a series of actions, if you want to get live status over an application link, if you want to do other things, it's the same piece of technology, but you can just enhance your particular link, and the other links will all stay there. So, for example, if you're integrating with a testing system, it's a good example, and you want to see live stats on the testing, you can write a plugin that will go off to the testing system, come back, and tell you exactly where the testing's up to in that space. But it's a very, very simple, very augmentative. Get started with REST very easily. For advanced augmentative functionality, you can write a plugin. I encourage you to check it out. It's sort of the strategy that we're using with a lot of the new integration plugin points to make them twofold in that way. So those are some of the features for integration partners. Now I'm running behind, so let's move on to commercial vendors. So the commercial part of the ecosystem has been very, very good for us over time. And it's a really, really vital part of the ecosystem for us, thinking about all the different people involved. Because at least from Scott and my perspective as founders, it's awesome. I was talking to Sohail, is he here? Down the back. It's awesome that people have jobs now on the back of Atlassian. I just think that's amazing. Like that people create livelihoods, create companies, create all these sorts of things on the back of building on top of our platform is, at least from a founder's point of view, is just kind of, it's just an amazing thing. It's like we've created all these jobs, hundreds of jobs now around the world. And we're really trying to treat these guys as an equal part, as I said, of that triangle of people involved in the ecosystem. As an example of how we're trying to listen, ActiveObjects is a piece of technology that we have put out, a component that obviously enables you to do large-scale data storage. So it gives you effectively databases that your plugin can write to if you've got a lot of data that you want to write. Now, 2 years ago at Atlas Camp, all of the commercial guys, this was their biggest complaint, right, by far, is I need to store large-scale data if you want me to build really interesting things, right? I need to store more data, more data, more data. Last year at Atlas Camp, we talked about ActiveObjects, which was our solution to this problem. We've gotten a lot of feedback from a lot of people over the last year. And it's now available for download in every product. It's pretty much available internally shipping in every product. So if you look at these columns, so the first is download, so that's compatibility. That means if I want to use a plugin that uses ActiveObjects, I have to download the ActiveObjects plugin first, and then the second plugin second. The second column is developer preview. So those are, for example, in Jira 4.4, it ships with ActiveObjects inside it. But we've told the ecosystem, hey, it may change slightly between 4.4 and 5.0, right? So it's there, it's bundled, but it may change a little bit. And in 5.0, which is coming up before the end of the year, hopefully, it will be final and it's there. We're using it very, very heavily. So the new version of Greenhopper has moved over to ActiveObjects, so we're consuming it internally. But if you want to do large-scale data storage, ActiveObjects is here. It's ready. and we thoroughly recommend you try it. It's very, very simple. It's very, very easy to store large amounts of data using it. And the next version of Confluence and Bamboo will have it in dev preview, and then you'll see it slowly roll into final with the versions after that as we get feedback from those individual constituencies. So large-scale data storage, we are listening to you guys. Second thing that I wanted to say from just some stats that I pulled up, and I haven't actually talked about ecosystem stats, is we're now at, I think it's actually, I can't work out why Keynote draws it this way, because that last chart is actually 772 plugins that we have. For some reason it stops at 750. So 772 plugins. But what's important is if you look at year after year, I mean, the first Atlas Camp was about this time in 2008. So we're now in our fourth Atlas Camp, and we have 4 times as many plugins, 5 times as many plugins. So the ecosystem itself is growing really, really strongly, which is wonderful. You guys are all creating awesome things that the customers love. And if you look at the growth rates, even in the last 2 years, we grew 50%, more than 50% last year and almost 50% this year. So these are purely new plugins, not new versions or improvements of plugins, just absolutely new plugins going up on plugins.Atlassian.com. What's fascinating is when I pulled out the commercial stats, the commercial ecosystem, or people building, for pay plugins that they're trying to build real businesses and generate jobs for themselves, is actually growing even faster than the normal ecosystem. So it grew 109% the year before and 79%. So we had 80 new commercial plugins released last year, I think 79, which is incredible. So thank you to all the customers who bought them and have encouraged those small ISVs. Most of our commercial plugins are written by, 1 or 2 person teams that are really trying to learn about building a software industry, a software company, and growing up their business. So to everyone who supported them, thank you very much. To those guys who are building those, commercial tools, please keep letting us know about how we can improve what you're doing. When we look at demand, just while I'm on stats, so August was our largest month for plugin downloads ever, which is awesome. Just finished. We had about just shy of 95,000 plugins downloaded just in August. Now, I think 2 or 3 years ago at the summit, we had about 100 and something thousand downloads in the year, kind of thing. So we're accelerating. The adoption of plugins, the usage in the customers is going up heavily. When we looked at some stats and thought about it, we have an average of more than 1 commercial plugin now per customer. Which is awesome. So the average number of commercial plugins per customer is over 1, which is incredible. People are getting new things done. So what have we done to try and help you guys during the year? Obviously, ActiveObjects, and there's a few other technologies that we've put out for the commercial vendors. We've tried to work very heavily in listening to your feedback on helping you connect with our customer base. It's one of the biggest challenges commercial guys have is connecting to the customers and getting their plugins out, getting feedback, improving the plugin. So you'll notice on Pack, you can now put a bit more marketing into your plugin. I pulled out 2. I know there's a whole handful of people who have written really, really good marketing. And you can just make it a little more visual and help sell the plugin a little more. We've ran a bunch of webinars again, promoting the best plugins that we see out there and helping you guys to get access to the customer base. And obviously on the website, we've tried to promote, again, a series of plugins, and they rotate and everything else. So we've heard you, and we're trying to work out new avenues to help you guys market to the customer base. So the biggest thing that we are talking about at the moment, I guess, is the next step in the evolution, which is the Atlassian Marketplace. So really has two goals, right? And so the Marketplace is the ability to buy all of these commercial plugins from Atlassian. Why are we doing this? Well, there's 2 reasons, really. One is, from the customer's point of view, we hear a lot of complaints about buying from the commercial ecosystem. It's difficult, right? Because there's EULA incompatibility, which is really hard. There's big enterprises who say raising a $300 purchase order is just such a pain in the ass that I can't be bothered to do it, right? There you go. And that's really hard, and we understand that, right? And we've worked very hard on making our billing processes and making all of those processes as easy as possible to do for the customers. And from the plugin author's point of view, from the commercial vendor's point of view, our goal is really with the Marketplace to try to put more money into your pockets, right? To help you grow that business as best you can, to connect you with customers, and realistically to allow you to spend as much time coding as you can and as little time doing all the other things that can destroy a one-person business in terms of licensing. And when you get large investment bank X ringing you up and saying, you know, I need these numbers and I need these things and I have to know about your business plan and I have to know all this other stuff, and you say, well, I'm selling you $200 worth of software, and they say, well, it doesn't matter how many dollars. I have a purchasing department that needs all this stuff, and you go, screw it, it's just too difficult to sell things to these companies. So our goal with the marketplace is to try to take all of our expertise in selling to enterprises and getting software efficiently into large numbers of customers and try to expose as much of that to the commercial ecosystem as possible. So we're hoping to launch this early next year, but right now it's just really a plea for beta testers. From the vendor side, we'd love to hear from you guys. We have a bunch of APIs that we've been working on and a bunch of things, and we really want to hear what you want and how we can make the marketplace work the best for you and help you grow the business, which is ultimately our goal. If we can grow all of the commercial vendors out there, it makes the entire ecosystem better. It'll make Jira, Confluence, better products, and kind of the customers will get more niche use cases solved, which is really good. Secondary, if you are interested, Daniel or Jonathan are the people to talk to up the back waving. We'd love to hear from you guys if you're a commercial vendor. And thank you to all the guys that have already provided a lot of feedback. I know we've been in touch with a bunch of folks already. And secondly, if you're a customer, we would love to hear from you about this idea and the concept of it, right? So there's a whole bunch of customer problems that we've heard anecdotally, and we're trying to reach out to as many customers as possible. It's good when I talk about EULAs and buying $200 plugins that a bunch of people sort of cheer because it means we're kind of on the right path. But we're basically trying to make it as easy as possible for you guys to consume these commercial plugins as possible. So if you want to buy a copy of Jira and then one extra plugin or two extra plugins, you just write one check. It's as easy as possible. One purchasing, standard EULAs, et cetera, and we can move forward, and everyone can kind of move a bit more frictionless. So we'd love your feedback. It's going to be launched early in the new year, next year. And that's my summary of the commercial vendors. Miles over time. So one more thing, hopefully of interest to folks here, is we've had Atlas Camp now for 4 years. One of the biggest pieces of feedback we have is that people want to do it in Europe. So next year we're going to have 2 Atlas Camps. So there will be one here and one in Europe as well. So we don't have a location yet, but we have a date. This is a fascinating place to be. So it's going to be on March 22nd, 23rd of next year. So about 6 months away. It'll be in Europe. So if you're a European or American and you're going to travel that way instead of in reverse, which is totally possible, we'd love your feedback. And I'm not sure how we're going to pick the city at the moment, but we've had all sorts of suggestions. So maybe we'll make it a vote. Loudest country wins. But it will be somewhere in Europe. Probably in Western Europe, I assume, March 22nd, 23rd. So if you're a European ecosystem participant, please put that down. And we'd love any thoughts about how we can make that as successful as possible. We have a disproportionately large amount of the ecosystem that comes from Europe, so we're really trying to get over there and do the best by then as we can. Is that good for people, or are people just asleep? If I put everyone to sleep. Out of interest, how many people would come to an Atlas Camp Europe? All right, we're in definitely double digits. Fine. Well, I mean, I know there are we get a lot of complaints from people who say, look, getting across to San Francisco from Europe and the hotels and the flights and everything else is a very expensive exercise. My company won't pay for it, et cetera. So to have 2, I think, will really help those people in the ecosystem grow up. So very briefly, there's a whole series of things I've talked about, focusing on internal developers, making it faster for you to build plugins, really thinking on integration, and we are thinking very, very heavily, and Matt's going to talk a whole bunch more about Jira 5, which I'm very, very excited about, and then talking about the commercial vendor ecosystem and how we see that playing in as a part and how we're trying to enable and help them both to build their plugins and then to get them into customers' hands as efficiently as possible. Too many things on that slide. Quite simply, I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to build a really world-class ecosystem. I'd like to extend my thanks to everybody who's here. The fact that you're here means you're trying to help us do that. whether you're building plugins, whether you're using the tools, whether you're trying to improve the products for your own consumer base inside your companies. Thank you very much for all the work that you've put in, all of the feedback. Please keep it coming. We have a growing developer relations team and a growing developer ecosystem team building all of these tools and functionalities for you, but your feedback is utterly invaluable in improving those things. So I hope next year, we have an even better SDK to show to you. The marketplace fits everybody's needs really, really well. We've improved our REST APIs. You come and you say, the stability of Jira 5 APIs is awesome. My plugin hasn't broken. I love you guys. So we're really looking for your feedback. But thank you very much for helping us out. I don't think I can take any questions now because we're way behind. But if you have any, please see me or Daniel and Jonathan. Do you guys want to stand up and just wave if you're not sure? So again, if you want to be a beta tester for the marketplace, if you have any feedback, those are the best two guys to start with, or hopefully I can route you. So thank you very much for being here, and love to hear feedback over the next 24 to 48 hours. Thank you.